Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new Doctor Who video where today we're discussing all things the Church on Ruby Road, giving you my review, my thoughts all about the episode. So yes guys, I hope you had a fantastic Christmas. Wasn't it great to be watching Doctor Who on Christmas Day again as well? I was thinking, that the last time I did a review for a Christmas episode was back in 2017 with Twice Upon a Time. I'm sure you can find that review somewhere on my channel from 6 years ago, but it's so fun and exciting to be able to, firstly yesterday, enjoy Doctor Who on Christmas Day, watching it with the family. It just felt like the right thing to do again after so many years of, 6 years of not having it. It was such a great time and a great episode, so let's get stuck straight into it. Also, apologies for my voice, you can probably hear I've got a bit of a cold, so I'm sounding a little bit hoarse today, but hopefully that won't put you off my thoughts too much. So the Church on Ruby Road, obviously it was a story that needed to do quite a lot. It needed to establish a new Doctor, establish a new companion, really establish a new era of the show, because compared to the Jodie Whittaker era or, most of the 60th specials, like the only carryover to this episode from the previous one is the TARDIS. I know we obviously saw a bit of shoot at the end of the giggle, but fundamentally it's that classic like the 11th Hour or Rose or, those full-on kind of resets of the show where all of the main cast is different and you've got to establish a whole new world, a whole new set of characters, and to do that within the confines of a Christmas special as well, I think it is quite a challenge because you've got to make it still kind of accessible to that wider family audience because you've got more people watching on Christmas Day who maybe don't watch the rest of the year as well. So it was quite a task for RTD to take on, and I think he smashed it. I think he did it so successfully. I think it was such a strong Christmas special, one of the best ones we've had in a while. I think, I know it has been a while, but even then, a long while. Certainly in the first half of the story, it feels like this is the story of Ruby Sunday. We see, various different scenes of her. Initially, obviously, her as a baby being left at the church. Then we see her with Davina McCall. We see her in her band, with her friends and with her family. And it feels like that's kind of, the first half of the story is, essentially Ruby's story. It's quite interesting that Russell said that actually Disney told them to put in an extra scene. And that's where we got that scene of the Doctor jumping out of the snowman's head and meeting the policeman and having that great little kind of I am the Doctor moment with him that it felt so doctory. But like they filmed that a year after they filmed the actual Christmas special. And I can kind of see both sides. I think it was a brilliant scene, but I can also understand the kind of idea of wanting to very much focus on Ruby, have the Doctor kind of hiding in the shadows, and then, he appears once the baby is stolen on top of and he's jumping across buildings, and that's kind of when the Doctor is really introduced and established into this episode. So they kind of added that extra scene in, which, as I say, I think is a great scene. It's a great classic Doctor-y sort of moment that just feels right, and it feels, it feels so good, and it's so good to see Ncuti doing that. He totally feels like the Doctor to me in this episode. Almost, I feel like sometimes with, Doctor's first episode, you spend the first episode kind of not quite seeing them as the Doctor yet. They're kind of just the new actor or whatever, but Ncuti, just right from the start, he feels immediately like the Doctor, like there's no question. He just is, and I think that's fantastic. He's got so much energy, so much enthusiasm, so much just kind of heart and care and love as well in his character, which I think is fantastic. Real emotion to his character, which I think, is really enhancing it as well. And there's lots of interesting dynamics between him and Ruby that are explored throughout the story as well. Now, one thing we know that RTD always does fantastically is establishing a family and establishing characters. And obviously we saw that meeting Ruby's mum and her adoptive mum and her grandma as well. And the three of them are already set up perfectly as a family, and sort of seeing those two recurring characters, I'm sure we're going to see in episodes in the future. It just feels like RTD is so much better than Moffat or Chibnall at writing those kind of families, the sort of creating that world around the companion. Like Moffat in particular was great at kind of creating a really good and compelling companion and pulling them out of whatever world they're in and taking them on the dramatic adventures, but actually kind of grounding that character and giving them that world that they're choosing to leave behind usually. I think there's no one better than RTD, and we see that again in this story because they're such fantastic, funny characters. You get Sherry, wanting a cup of tea the whole episode, and that sort of running joke and things. It's just funny. It's just fun. And just to see the heartfelt care of Ruby's mum as well, that, she's so devoted to kind of fostering different children and things, and also loves Ruby so much. I think it's just such a great set of characters and a dynamic that sort of immediately hit upon in this story. And, I'm sure is going to continue for episodes to come as well. In some ways, I was slightly surprised how much of it is kind of dialogue led in this story. There's obviously quite a lot of scenes set in Ruby's flat between both Ruby and her family and then the Doctor and all of that. That is actually forms quite a large part of this story. And And maybe I didn't quite expect that because it's sort of, a big bombastic Christmas Day episode. You're kind of expecting it just to be chaos with goblins for 55 minutes. But the story had to do so much else in terms of establishing that doctor, that companion, that family, those relationships, all of it. So I think it was very sort of necessary to create that as part of the story. And I think it works so effectively. You just learn enough about Ruby, about who Ruby is, about her backstory, about what she's about in this story through those conversations, through that dynamic, that you can immediately see that she's going to be a fun and exciting companion, that she's kind of, ready to throw, at least he feels like she's ready to throw herself into those adventures with the doctor, that she's not, kind of phased by the doctor and phased by being sent up into a goblin ship to go and rescue a baby and all of that. Like, obviously, yes, it does bother her, but she doesn't, doesn't like fall apart or anything. She's ready to kind of jump into that. And I think that's, a sign that they're going to be a great doctor and companion dynamic. Obviously, we had the goblins in this story, slightly fun and random and quirky little sort of, I guess, just aliens to fight against. And this whole concept of like sort of coincidence and bad luck that's kind of confusing, and again plays into this kind of idea that Russell's making it all more and more kind of fantasy and stuff, because I guess that whole kind of coincidency stuff isn't, it isn't exactly baked into kind of scientific logic and understanding. It's very much kind of fantasy concepts and ideas, really, that it's really fun to see kind of the doctor trying to understand that all through this episode, kind of acknowledging that this doesn't make any sense to him, that he doesn't know anything about this. And he spends, parts of this episode trying to figure out what is this whole coincidence about. The idea that the sort of Goblin King feeds on babies that sort of come out of or are caused by coincidence, and that all the accidents in the world and bad luck and stuff is caused by goblins and things. I think those sorts of fun kind of concepts I always really, really enjoy in Doctor Who, even if, trying to really fully grasp and understand it sometimes is a little bit complicated. Now, it's a scene we knew was coming, but obviously the Goblin song and then the Doctor and Ruby song was probably one of the most sort of talked about parts of this story, shall we say. Now, as I say, we all knew the Goblin song. We knew it wasn't necessarily a very good song, but it was going to be an integral part of the episode. And we knew there was the rumours that we'd see the Doctor and Ruby bringing another verse of the song for us. And, well, we certainly got it there, the Doctor just bursting into song, which I enjoyed it. I know it's very camp, it's very over the top, but I feel like it's just good festive fun. And I think we've got to kind of accept that Doctor Who, well, I feel like if you're a Doctor Who fan, you probably know it by now, that Doctor Who is a silly show. Like, it is a bit of a silly show, but that's why we love it, because it's a bit silly and stupid and funny, and you shouldn't take it too seriously. And so having the Doctor and Ruby bursting into song, yes, it's totally silly and camp and whatever, but I love it. I think it's great. I think it's so much fun. It really, is that sort of Christmas Day musical fun to Doctor Who that I think it really needs sometimes, and has at times in the past been lacking. And so I didn't have any problem with it. I mean, again, they weren't hardly like the greatest lines ever written, but especially the Doctor and Ruby's bits were obviously them just meant to be kind of improvising. And I think they, particularly Ruby did a pretty good job there, just improvising a song that fits perfectly in. I know, obviously, it was all written for them, but within the episode, I thought, that was just a fun moment and a good way and a fun way to kind of get them out of that situation where it's like, how are we going to fight a bunch of goblins or something? Well, we'll just sing a song and run away, was basically it. And it worked perfectly. So I thought that was a great moment of the episode. I'm sure, yes, people will be like, oh, it's terrible. Oh, Doctor Who's been ruined. Oh. But actually, I thought it's just fun. Christmas fun. And then we sort of obviously have that moment where the Doctor and Ruby escape the goblin ship, come back down with the baby, back into Ruby's flat. And you're kind of almost like, where is this story going to go next? Because it seems like things are kind of almost wrapped up, because the Doctor says, like, the goblins aren't going to come and invade Earth. That's not what they do. They don't live in this realm. They kind of live up somewhere else, in the goblin ship and wherever they're from. And then we obviously get this whole, like, Ruby's mum mentioning coincidences constantly, and it causes, as far as I understand it, it kind of causes the world to be sort of cracked in that way, sort of a crack in time kind of thing, like Series 5 and all that, which means that because the goblins have gone back in time, they erase Ruby from existence for a bit. And you get that whole, I just think it's always a great idea, the kind of, erase from time. The Doctor knows they exist, but no one else does. I know we've kind of seen it before with, Matt Smith and Series 5 and things like that, but I always think those ideas work so well, there's such emotional weight to them. And it suddenly kind of pushes us into this situation where the Doctor is now like an integral part of Ruby's like birth and, the start of her life, which I think is significant. I think is something that will be explored in the next series as well. I'm very intrigued about some of the other stuff that's going to be playing out, which I'll talk about in a sec. But just creating that moment where the Doctor's running around and realizing he's lost Ruby, that she's literally not just lost, but she's like erased from existence, that suddenly her mum has turned into some, sort of grumpy, miserable, middle-aged woman, essentially, sort of hating the world pretty much. And it's such an interesting how that whole just dynamic, the whole world changes because Ruby isn't in it anymore. I think that's so great to show that effects that people can have on other people and how, how that plays out, I think was so interesting. And so, yes, we then get the Doctor going back in time, back 18 years, way, way, way long ago to 2004. Doesn't that make us all feel old? I mean, it is really weird that we've got a companion that was born the year before the show, at least in the show, was born the year before the show came back in 2005. Like, when we meet Rose in 2005 and Ruby was born the year before. Like, that's just crazy. So the Doctor goes back in time to 2004 and, he goes and saves the baby, like the psychic gloves things. I think they're really cool. I think it's a great, it's a great little innovation. Of course, the Doctor's always tinkering with little gadgets and things. So why not this special sort of psychic glove that he can put all the weight of himself onto and things like that? I think that's a great idea and just creates some really great scenes. And obviously, the resolution to this episode, I sort of feel like it's probably going to be one of those things that only turns up fairly rarely in the future. I don't think it's going to be in every episode kind of thing. I'm sure it will turn up in the next series, but probably not regularly. But that was still a cool way. And then bringing that ship down to Earth onto the church spire, I thought that was, just dramatic, exciting, bit silly, bit crazy, but that's just fun Doctor Who moments. And then obviously catching the baby was a bit of a ridiculous thing. Sure, I'm going to bring the ship down, blow it all up, and hope I happen to catch the baby. Yes, it just don't think about it too deeply. That is Doctor Who for you. And yes, so it means that the Doctor was there. The Doctor was there on the night that Ruby was found, the night she was left and the night she was found, that the Doctor saw the woman that left Ruby behind. Now, that's obviously going to be a storyline in the next series. Almost like the Doctor it felt like half explained that to Ruby, that happened towards the end of the story. And then that's when he runs out, goes and saves Davina McCall, and then he sort of, kind of lurks around for a while. And I think Ruby kind of realizes it and understands that the Doctor can travel in time and stuff, but surely the first thing Ruby's going to say as soon as she gets in the TARDIS is, well, you just went and saw my mum before and I don't know who she is, so surely can't you just take me back in time? So I think there is a 100% chance that we're going back to that moment outside that church, and ultimately you're going to reveal who the mother is, because otherwise why would you have that hooded figure and the mystery around it in this episode? So I'm absolutely sure that's a very clear plot point that's going to extend into the next series, and I'm certainly very intrigued. Whether it's somebody dramatic or whether it's just a normal person, I don't really know. I don't think we really have a clue at the moment who it could be, apart from Jodie Whittaker, obviously, because of the shoes, except it's definitely not. But yeah, so that whole kind of seeing the Doctor in that moment, obviously we're, as fans, as the audience, we want to see we're like, who's that person? Come on, go over and see. But obviously the Doctor has to walk away, so we have to wait another few months. And so we get to the end of the story, the Doctor and Ruby go off on their adventures, and of course we come back to Mrs. Flood talking to talking to camera, easy for me to say, reminding us that she knows what a TARDIS is. Of course we should too, and giving a little wink to camera. So obviously, Mrs. Flood is a very important character for the next series. I'll be doing a video fully discussing all my different theories on that, so I won't really go too deep into that, but it's very clear that that's going to be a key mystery for the next series, finding out who she is. Is she the same person as the mother, or is it something completely different? I'm very intrigued to find out. And another little tidbit that's probably going to expand into the next series is the whole Mavity thing, because of course Mavity was mentioned again. Again, I love it. It's so funny. It's great. And I really hope that that's going to continue to be a plot point in the next series and maybe become something significant. I don't know. We'll have to see. But overall, I just felt like it was a really fun 55 minutes. It was fun. It also helped us establish those characters. It gave us that sort of emotional depth to the different characters, and meeting the Doctor and Ruby for the first time. Them, gradually meeting through the episode, and then finally kind of, being thrown into a goblin ship together, and just seeing the scenes between them. You can see they're going to be a great, dynamic duo. I think they're going to be so much fun together, and they're going to go on such exciting adventures. Seeing Ruby's just pure excitement when she realizes that the Doctor is a time traveler and that he can go anywhere in time and space, and then her, doing the classic walking around the TARDIS, realizing that it's bigger on the inside. Cut to Shooty just saying, "I'm the Doctor." It's perfect. It's classic Doctor Who. I know we've done it many, many times, but it never gets less exciting when you just know that's the moment, this era is beginning, and this whole next few years of Doctor Who is going to be all about the Doctor and Ruby. And I'm tremendously excited for that based on this episode. So yes, guys, do let me know down in the comments below, what did you think of the episode? Was it a good start to this new era? Was it a good Christmas special? Would you have preferred something different from it? And of course, any of your theories on who's the mysterious woman, who is Mrs. Flood, all of that stuff, I'd love to hear it down in the comments below. But that, guys, is just about it for this video. Please remember to hit that like button, that subscribe button if you're new here, and I will see you again very, very soon for a brand new video. But until then, it is goodbye.